So Yik Yak was actually the first social media app I ever had, and I loved it before they it up. So in 2010, Tyler Droll, a student at Furman University, takes a coding class where he meets his friend Brooks Buffington. The two of them spend that semester learning how to code iPhone apps, and they become fast friends. They even rush the same fraternity. And over that next year, they come up with an idea for an app, an anonymous, location-based sharing service, Yik Yak. There were already several anonymous sharing apps on the market, but instead of being based around groups, subreddits, or bowls, Yik Yak was going to be based around the user's physical location. Pretty cool. The two become so dead set on developing this app that Tyler actually withdraws from med school and joins Brooks to bring Yik Yak to the App Store. They spend months coding, and eventually, Yik Yak is released in 2013. And so began their meteoric rise. Within the year, Yik Yak was the 9th most downloaded app on the App Store, and Tyler and Brooks secured an insane amount of funding, notably from mega fund Sequoia Capital for $69 million, which brought their valuation to $400 million. So in November of 2014, at the age of 23, Tyler and Brooks were doing pretty well, I'd say. Their startup had infiltrated almost every school in the country. They were valued at $400 million despite having generated no revenue, and they were still in their early 20s, so more to come, right? However, in 4 years, Yik Yak would be shut down. So, why? Well, Yik Yak actually had an overfunding problem. It's easy for startups to fail when they're underfunded. They simply run out of time to grow their revenue to meet their costs. But overfunding can pose serious issues as well. For a company to break even, revenues need to be at least as high as expenses, duh. And for a startup, this process often takes a while. Additionally, with sufficient funding, a startup often takes on operational losses, prioritizing growth over immediate returns, and this is often a wise decision. But when a company is overfunded, their monthly expenses scale incredibly quickly as they hire numerous employees and lease acres of office space. These monthly expenses shorten the break-even timeline and put increasing pressure on the business to generate revenue. Essentially, Yik Yak took a leap of faith that they could turn a profit and burn through their runway far too quickly. Yik Yak never achieved profitability to cover their immense costs and never secured more funding, leading to its demise. Additionally, what do all good startups have in common? An angry ex-member suing for equity. Classic. In this case, it was Douglas Warsler, a fellow fraternity brother of Tyler and Brooks, who claimed that he was owed 1/3 of Yik Yak's equity. Warsler was seeking punitive damages, legal fees, and a 1/3 stake in Yik Yak. That's a steep price. Warsler claimed that Tyler and Brooks had kicked him out of the company by dissolving Locus Engineering, their joint partnership that originally designed Yik Yak. I'm usually pretty skeptical of these lawsuits, since 9 times out of 10 it's an old friend looking for a payout, but it seems like Douglas was pushed out unfairly. He was pretty instrumental in the development of Yik Yak. Brooks had even emailed Warsler, saying that he needed to give up part of his company because Brooks' parents, who put some money into the app, wanted it that way. Like, really, Brooks? You're in your 20s, and your excuse is my mom said so? Anyway, the lawsuit was settled for an undisclosed amount, but it was estimated to cost Yik Yak millions. Several more lawsuits would follow, only adding to the legal woes of the company. In the end, it's probably best that Douglas just got his payout and left because
A new social media app being misused for bullying.
You can say whatever you want and no one will know.
Users can post anonymous messages. Some yaks attack sports teams and Greek life, as well as professors and specific people.
Keep your kids off this misused app.
Yik Yak had a serious cyberbullying problem. At one point in 2016, there was a Change.org petition to shut down Yik Yak with almost 1 million signatures. Yik Yak became the home for bullying, bomb threats, even death threats. As a result, Yik Yak was banned at over 85% of high schools across the country and developed a reputation as a hate-filled forum for angry teens. Yik Yak responded to the bullying with a few new features, notably the requirement of using handles and an increase in moderation and censorship, but many of these features were later revoked. Yik Yak's greatest strength, its anonymity, was also its greatest weakness. They couldn't control the cyberbullying and it became forever associated with the brand, and Yik Yak eventually just dissolved. Once valued at $400 million, Yik Yak was sold to Square for only $3 million, less than 1/100th of its initial value. Yikes. And now, in 2021, Yik Yak has returned to the App Store. And I hope they do better, because I do not want to make a part 2. Please.